Okay, thank you. We'll get those results here in just a moment. Can everyone see those results? It looks like we've got people from each of the 5 counties in the region, as well as quite a few others from outside of this area. So thank you all for joining us and welcome to the Workforce Housing Solutions webinar. My name is Julie Kennery, and I'm the program manager for the Rural Engagement and Vitality Center, which is a program partnership between Eastern Oregon University and Wallowa Resources. This program was launched in January of 2020 to connect partners with capacity and resources, including assets at EOU, to advance community and economic development. I'm here today with partners from Northeast Oregon Economic Development District and the Eastern Oregon Workforce Board to begin a series of events that will address the housing shortages that we're experiencing across Eastern Oregon. This collaboration begins with a survey that was conducted by NEO EDD in 2020, where it was reported that workforce housing shortages are a significant issue affecting communities throughout their service area. In my experience at the REV, many discussions that begin about workforce development eventually lead to the challenge of housing availability for the workforce. The partners I'm here with today came together last spring to find a way to address these challenges. There are a few of us here behind the scenes facilitating the webinar and running the Q&A, as well as a few in the attendee section who will be monitoring the chat and helping answer questions. We're happy to see so many people from across Eastern Oregon and beyond who've come and have an interest in resolving the shortages of quality workforce housing in the region. We're going to launch a second poll here. We want to find out what is most important about this issue for those of us who are here today. So please take a moment to read through those options on the list and choose one that is your top priority today. Okay, we're waiting for those poll results to come up, and here they are. So it looks like we have most of us here being interested in employers' ability to hire and retain workers. We've also got some interest in access to quality and safe housing for everyone. And a few in each of the other categories there. Thanks everyone for participating in that. So without further ado, we'll get started with our presenters here. We have 5 panelists who will be presenting about the work they're doing in their communities to help increase options for workforce housing. We hope this will be inspiring as well as informative. Each panelist will share their presentation, and then we'll have about 5 minutes for questions with that presenter. You should see a Q&A option on the lower menu of your Zoom screen. Use this to ask your question at any time during the presentation. Our Q&A moderator, Chantal, will read your questions out loud to the presenter. Please remember to use the Q&A feature rather than the chat for these questions that you want to have answered live. Our first presenter is Kurt Berger. Kurt is leading a program at Hermiston High School in Umatilla County, where students have the opportunity to learn how to build custom homes. Welcome, Kurt.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you. Go right ahead.
All right. Hey, thank you for allowing me to just tell our story. Again, my name is Kurt Berger. I'm the program coordinator for a Columbia Basin student home building program. I've worked in the Hermiston School District for 30 years. This is my 31st year as a teacher and a coach. And then 8 years ago, the school district, along with our community and the Home Building Association, wanted to start a home building program where the students would take a class and actually build a house. So I guess our involvement in helping with the house shortage is we build one modern, energy efficient, custom home a year with students from this area. So this, like I say, this whole thing started really was, could we give students a real hands-on experience working with local contractors and suppliers in a classroom situation, and they would build this one house a year. And we're very fortunate in Hermiston to have this unique situation where we actually had the land. And right now we're on the 8th house, and the whole basis of this program 8 years ago was to find out if the state of Oregon or the federal government could give us a grant, which is how this thing started. And could we take that grant? So we got just a little under $400,000. Could we take this money, buy the equipment, tools, everything necessary to build a house with students and local contractors? Can we build this house, sell the house, and then can we take the money from the sale of the house and continue to do that? So knock on wood, we've been able to do that successfully for 7 years. Actually, last year we sold the house about midway through the year, and this year we're looking at someone buying it, right now, because of the housing shortage, because of our reputation, the quality of our home, and those kinds of things. So we are moving this, I suppose, in the right direction. The story starts with way before 8 years ago, members of the community in our school district thought it would be a great idea, to have students actually work on a real life project. And so well before I was involved in this thing, I'm a teacher and a coach at Hermiston High School. Actually, I'd retired from coaching. I was just going to fade into the sunset and teach the last few years. And they came to a CTE meeting one day and said, we have this opportunity to start this construction program where we got a hunk of land. We're gonna build one house a year. And I'm in that meeting thinking that sounds like a great idea. I sure wish I would have had that opportunity when I was in high school. A couple of weeks later, they come to me and say, we think you're the guy to run this program. So I was actually the architecture teacher for the last 23 years or so. And so I immediately went out and got my contractor's license. And I guess I'm giving you some of this information if anyone's interested in looking in this in their area. This is kind of the process that we went through. Works out better for a school district to have the teacher as the contractor. It allows all the subs to work underneath my license. So I went out and got my contractor's license, and then the next year we went through the process of getting. I actually took my architecture class with a local architect that came in, and we worked with the students for about 6 to 8 weeks to come up with a plan for our first home. So the program, like the name Columbia Basin Student Homes, is that for a reason. When we started, we had students from Umatilla, Stanfield, and Hermiston. And we've had that every year except the last couple years because of COVID. So just the restrictions on movement of students or whatever. Right now, this current year on the 8th house, we have 12 students from Hermiston only. And there are 2 periods each. So I have students for about an hour and 40 minutes it's a regular class for them, 4th and 5th period, and then 6th and 7th period. And they actually drive out to the site. So we're very close to the high school, but the students actually drive to the site. And then this is just a working program. So I say that the instruction is on what we're going to do that day, not so much on how we're going to do what we're going to do that day. So we're trying to make this a senior-based kind of their final project, capstone project, where they come out here and, they're involved in building this house from the dirt, clear the finished product, and we sell the house. And, the rest of their lives, they drive by and look and say, I built that house, which is really quite a phenomenal event for students to be able to do that. We also, in building this program, wanted to make sure we involved more than just the students that are actually physically putting nails in the house. And so right now we have my student builders. So that's the students that are actually building the house. We have our construction program. So the construction classes, intro, construction 1 and construction 2. Those students are able to come out here and see the house being built from the ground up. So they'll come out different times and actually see what we're doing. So we've got this like land lab where they can just come out here and actually, see a house from the dirt clear to the finished product. And they've already come out this year and looked at the foundation. And we just put the deck on, just getting ready to build the walls. Actually, we're going to start today. I got lumber coming in just a few minutes. And then we have obviously our architecture class. So in the past, students have worked on designing the next floor plan, which is what they're working on right now. We've had architecture classes come out this year already. So they're looking at the plot plan. They see the actual piece of property that we're going to put the next house on. And I get to explain to them what we're really looking for. And then they go through that process of coming up with a design. We're going to go look at all those designs. So the goal is, and we've done this lots of times, where a student actually designed the next house, which is really a tremendous opportunity. It's not just an assignment. They actually, if they design it correctly, we'll pick it, we'll build it, and there'll be the house that they design. And then in our ag program, our landscaping class, they do all of the landscaping for the house. And so they'll come out, lots of times throughout the year. And I try to let them do that kind of a thing. We let them know what we want. And this whole program is, when I say a modern, energy efficient home, that's exactly what we mean. It's a turnkey home. So when somebody buys this house, it's fenced, landscaped, everything's in. Typically we'll have an extended outdoor living space where we have a built-in barbecue, and they just do a tremendous job. If any of you have seen our homes, you can, they're high end. We do all put in all the bells and whistles, and we do that on purpose, trying to give our students the best opportunity we can. And really, my job as a program coordinator is to give students this real world experience, and then we're trying to kick these students out into the workforce. And so it's kind of unique. We've got several right now that are full-time with different contractors, and it's kind of neat because they come back and like in the foundation this year, one of my students has been working for this contractor for years, and he put in the foundation for this current house that we have. I've got one of my ex-students that's actually working with me, instructing the students. So it's myself and him, and then the student builders. And so it has been, we've done fairly well at kicking students out into the workforce. And, they come with us from all different backgrounds and all different life expectations. And some of them just want to know what's going on building house. Some of them actually want a career in this thing, but it gives them a chance to experience everything. In building the actual home, we don't do everything, but the students are here to see everything that is done. So we're not obviously doing the plumbing, the electrical. I typically try not to have them above 6 feet. So we're trying not to roll the trusses and do those kind of things, sheet rocking. And, but we have them here and they're able to see everything that's done throughout the completion of the house. And then we do physically as much as we can. So like on this current house, we just did the pony walls, put in the LPIs, the floor joists. Now we just put on the deck. And today we're going to start framing the actual walls. And then we do all the finish work, all the siding and that kind of stuff. And it's just a tremendous opportunity for students to see firsthand how a house is built from the start to the finish. When they show up here, we have tools for them, so they get their tool belts, all the tools that you need on a job site that the individual is going to carry on the tool belt. They have safety glasses, hard hats, and at the end of the year, they can take all that stuff with them. So if you came out to the job site, you see that we've got a cul-de-sac. There's 11 homes surveyed out. We're on the 8th home. There's 3 more to go. And then right beside this cul-de-sac is another one that's surveyed out for another 11 homes. So when this program started, we had it set up to build 22 homes, 1 home a year. And so that's what we've done, like I said, so far successfully. You know, we're in very strange times right now with everything. And, you know, we're knock on wood that we can continue to do this. We're going to continue to put out a high-end, very custom, you know, like I say, modern, energy efficient home. And because of that, and we're a little higher than the market of the other builders. So we're selling this one high-end home. And so far, you know, we're not influencing or hurting the other builders. And in fact, I would say in the last 8 years, we've actually helped them because we've raised the cost per square foot substantially. Our last house, I think, sold for about $201 a square foot. So it gives you an idea. Maybe 8 years ago when I started this thing, houses in Hermiston were selling for $100 a square foot. And so by just doing all of the little extra things that we do for the homeowners, it's raised that price. That's kind of our story. We also have a scholarship program. So the local contractors and suppliers, when they do business with us, they donate to our scholarship program. Every year we give out 1 or 2 scholarships, $3,000 scholarships for students to continue in the trades industries. And that's been very successful as we have students throughout the state, you know, continue the education, and we're real happy about that. And again, this whole thing wouldn't have started in our community without the Home Builders Association, without our leaders at the school district kind of having a vision for what we could do with a program like that. We were very fortunate to have the land. I think that's the biggest problem that a lot of the programs that we looked at in the Valley had, is their access to land just makes it very difficult to run a program like this. And the person running the program like myself, you've got to have that's a unique person that can run everything, get along with everyone. And so far in our program, we've been able to do that successfully. And, you know, that's what we'd like to see happen in the future. And hopefully, if you're interested in some of this kind of stuff, you could look at our program and you could, you know, talk with me or see what we've done, because I think what we've done could be done in lots of different places. But that's kind of our story. I suppose if there's questions, I guess now we can take that. I'm probably better at answering questions than telling what we're doing. So.
No, that was great, Gert. Thank you. Thank you. We do have several questions in the Q&A chat. So the first one is, do you track or how many students joined the trades and which ones?
Yeah, I haven't done that specifically. I know that in our numbers, we've had lots of students that go to college that are continuing the trades. We've had, there's lots of students. At one time I had 5 one summer without working full-time in the construction trades. And it's either that or higher right now. So, but I haven't specifically tracked that. I just know that we have helped in the area of putting students straight into the workforce, which is what one of the goals was of the program initially.
Okay, good. And does the school district own the land, or who owns the land?
Yes, the school district owned the land.
Okay. Thank you, Jennifer, for asking that question. And Sarah asked that what kind of owners are buying the homes? People working in Hermiston community, business owners from the Hermiston community, retirees, families, second homeowners, investors.
Yes, all of those.
We're interested. Oh, everyone. Okay.
No, the first homeowner was 2 retired 30-year teachers here in Hermiston. They started that for us. And then we've got a couple young families, and then the last couple are folks that are getting ready to retire or are retired. It's been interesting because I originally thought it would be the retiree kind of person, but because we're close to the middle school over here on RV, it's just a tremendous location to build homes, and a lot of people want to be here. And then because we have the higher end homes and a lot of the amenities some of the other home builders don't have, it's just been appealing to folks looking for that kind of a house.
See, there's interest in whether or not the supply chain has been disrupted, if the program has been affected by the supply chain disruptions. And yeah, we can start with that.
Yeah, the last 18 months has been interesting. So from a building standpoint, even though the schools were shut down and did not have any in-class learning, because we meet on site, there was no problem with that, like with busing like the schools have. So last year we were able to build a house just like normal. My class was exactly the same. Students showed up every day. We worked every day. As most of you know, most workers just worked. If they got sick, they stayed out until they were not sick and then went back to work. And that's kind of what we did. That we are still waiting on a trim kit for the freezer refrigerator. We had a freezer refrigerator combo, 72 inches of stainless steel in the last house, and we're still waiting for that. That's the one supply thing that I don't have right now. And then there is a concern even this year on MDF. So the trim, white trim that we would typically paint gray trim. So last year we did real wood trim, and we're probably going to do that again because I can get real wood and I don't know if I can get the other stuff. It's always a concern, or at least it has been lately. And the problem with, or one situation with our program is one thing could screw up us finishing the house in a year. So what I'm doing right now is trying to get in front of all of that stuff and pre-order things way earlier than I normally do so that we don't get caught in that dilemma.
Great. And have you had prior experience building homes before this program?
Have I? No. That's another thing that's kind of interesting. You can get your contractor's license. It's just passing a test, which as a teacher, I'm pretty good at passing tests. And then you come out to the real world and you got to build a house. It's very interesting. That's why we hooked up with our Northeast Oregon Home Builders Association. They hooked me up with a local contractor. I've actually, in the last 8 years, I'm the guy that's learned the most because I've got to work with all the best contractors in our area. And so, yes, I learned kind of on the fly on the first house. And now that we've done a few of them, I know how this stuff works.
Wow.
Yeah, it's interesting.
And I guess to help keep costs down, do you get any materials donated? And how does the school district own so much land?
Well, I don't know how they own that much land. That we have some administrators that have been very good with what they've done in the past. And I guess that's how we got that land. We do pay for everything, and we try to get as best a buy as we can on everything, but we're just another contractor building a house, and so we try to rotate who we work with so that we're just not with the same contractors and suppliers all the time, and so that's always a challenge. Everyone loves me when I'm using them. When I'm not there, I'm not as popular, but we just keep working things around. Of course, everyone recognizes that this is a tremendous program and an opportunity to move students through this and get them into the workforce. So everyone's been very supportive, and we're very lucky that Hermiston is a single high school community like that. It's allowed us to have a lot of success where I think in some of the bigger cities it's not quite as easy to do that.
And I think there's a few more questions, but are you going to stick around with this, Kurt, and we can ask later on?
Well, yes, the truck just showed up with lumber. I'm going to step out as soon as I'm done, get that offloaded, and I will be back, and I'll stay till the duration.
Great. And we can also send out some answered questions later on in an email or so. We can probably coordinate later.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing all that, Kurt. It's such an interesting program and exciting to see how it develops housing opportunities and the workforce that can build those houses for people. Our next presenter then is Gus Cottage. Gus is the owner of GCT Land Management, and he's going to speak today about his work to develop tiny home communities for veterans in Union and Baker counties. Thanks for being here, Gus.
Thank you, Julie. Yeah, just would like to take just a minute and tell Kurt, I know he's probably stepped out to unload the lumber truck, but I just wanted to give him a shout out and say what a fantastic opportunity he's helping along. Just seems like it's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity for the students. I think we need more people like Kurt doing what he's doing. I remember when we went through high school, all the direction was to become an accountant or to become a banker or to become some type of a professional, and we lost the blue collar way. And so I'm glad to see schools starting to emphasize that again. So great job, Kurt. In fact, I know locally here, LHS has just purchased ground to start their own CTE program. They've inquired about GCT helping them be a part of that program, and we're hoping next spring that they're going to start utilizing the CTE program to empower kids to start thinking about trades again. So anyway, I'll get off the soapbox, but I just wanted to thank him. Okay, so yeah, we are doing cottage home development in Eastern Oregon. We're working in Berger and in LeGrand. We have a couple different projects, and I'm going to go through those kind of at the 30,000 foot level. But I did want to just say that one of the first things I think that's important to realize is that this cottage home development is something new, I think, to most rural communities. It's innovative, and I think it allows for a real value in utilizing the land that's available within the communities that we live. And I know that it may not be common in most rural areas because it's just coming back on the scene again, I think. And usually rural areas are a little slower to come back on the scene with the newest ideas. And I'm guilty of that myself. But we're looking forward to being able to capitalize on what most of the communities are now allowing, which is this infill program for cottage homes. So I think the first point I'd like to make is I'm going to put up a picture here. Julie, are you guys able to see my photos?
I don't see it right now.
Hold on just a second. Do you have it yet?
Did you click on share screen?
Yep. I think we're getting it here. Hold on. Did you get that?
Yes, that looks great.
Sorry about that. All right, so the first thing that I wanted to really just be able to identify here is that in every community, there are opportunities for infill. And the thing that I've noticed is that, for instance, in this picture right here, we're looking at an overview of Baker City. We're highlighting the area that we are developing there for the Veterans Village. You can see it just has some vacant land, and what I'm wanting to emphasize is that you have to be able to find the vacant land and be able to then envision a way to use that land. And in most cases, it may or may not. In this case in Berger, it looked more primed and ready to develop on than it did than the property that we are developing in a Grand. But oftentimes it's not apparent. And so as you go to your city government likely you'll find that they will say there's a multitude of buildable lots in your community. And I know in the Grand, and I'm not sure about in Berger, but the majority of the lots are lots that may be undesirable. They may be somebody's double or triple lot that they live on, they have no intention of building on, which was the case in the Grand. So as I go to the next illustration here, this is Berger City's Veterans Cottage development. It has 12 cottages. I won't get into the weeds at this point about the demographic and how we chose that specific population of people, but just more focusing on how you can find these opportunities in your community if you're wanting to see that come to fruition. So the next one I think is speaks to my point a little bit more. Still trying to emphasize the fact that 1612 Russell was about 0.8 acres, so just under an acre. Looks like just about every other piece of property on that photo. And so it was for sale for a very reasonable price. One single family home, several buildings that should not have been standing. And so we were able to negotiate a deal with the owner, and we started talking to the VA about the need for veteran housing in the Grand. And there was substantial need, and so we met with an architect, and we created this model, which was our first Veterans Village concept. We're finishing up home number 10 right now in this illustration. 1 through 7 should be occupied by the 1st of November, and we're then going to be moving on over to Berger to start that project as well. But so emphasizing here is just that as I go back to this screen, you'll see the illustration just looks like something that you would drive on by, and then having a team of people that can come together and visualize something like this adds a huge impact to the local need for housing, as well as the dollars that will come into the community for construction and free up possible housing that may be better suited for young families, where maybe a single veteran could move into a place like this. So that was my first point. I just wanted to have folks realize that there are buildable areas in your community. The cottage home development is a great fit for a lot of those. So, and the second thing I think was creating partnerships. If you're in your community and you're wanting to see housing, you see the value in being a part of a movement to create housing, then I think that gathering together people that have a vision and finding ways to partner is where we found some traction. So one of the larger developments that we've done have been 10 and 12 units. We're also working on a smaller development where there will be 3 cottages, which will be positioned near the university and the hospital. We're anxious to get that built and be able to offer that to incoming professionals for short or longer term stay. And so we're actually experimenting a little bit with affordable housing, as well as workforce housing, and possibly even some of that being vacation rental housing for tourism. So I think there are just conversations in getting started with communities that are looking to do this, that need to be had with folks that are interested in investing. If you're looking at the smaller projects, I had a gentleman just drive up one day and ask me if I was interested in using any private financing for the projects that we're doing in LeGrand. He'd seen us doing things in LeGrand, and he said, hey, I'm interested in partnering with you if you have any need for financing. I'd like to see the community being bettered. I'd like to see the men out working, and I'd like to keep my money working locally. And so that was really encouraging to me. It made me realize that there are folks out there that are interested in partnering with developers, with contractors. And so it opened the door to that being a reality. He's done several projects with me, and I now have a few other folks that do the exact same thing. So, but the partnership with Oregon Housing and Community Services has been great. I expect it to continue to be great. They are leveraging state money to partner with private money, and we're creating, for rural communities, we're creating a substantial number of an unmet need, which is a single bedroom living unit. So we're really excited that we have that partnership with them, and looking forward to growing this model. I'm hoping that people will be able to recognize the value in the partnerships, and hopefully start some roundtable discussions about how to further that movement. Third thing I think that was important for us, and as you work in the housing industry in rural Oregon, I know with the grant that we received from Oregon Housing, they actually had set-asides for rural dollars, and that was great to see them lending a hand out to folks that are outside of the area where most of the developers work, or the systems that are in place to put these projects together. So it was very helpful for us, and encouraging that they were willing to find ways to get us started over here in these rural communities. But I think the third point that I think is important for folks that are trying to fill this need of workforce housing and really affordable housing is that the city, the community that you live in, the government has got to be on board. And I can speak from experience, knowing that I've seen both sides of that. I'm encouraged now, and I'm thankful that it seems like we are addressing that need more and more as we go along. I know our public works director, our city manager, and planning director, they're all working with us now to find ways to make things work. And I know a lot of times when you go in to see the city, they may have answers like, you can't do that there, this isn't going to work here. So I'm really thankful that that's the case here in LeGrand, and seems to be the case in Berger. So having a government that is supportive is critical. And if they're not supportive, I think it's good to start a movement where you can get folks to find out why. Because just staying the way we are in these rural communities is not healthy. So I'm anxious to be a part of that moving forward. So that's what I have. I think the three things were just being willing to search out those undesirable lots, those hidden pieces of ground that are developable. The second thing I think that was important is finding partnerships where You can do one, or you can do 20 of these tiny homes. And I don't think there's any correct way to do it. So, but those partnerships are important. And the third thing is just making sure your city government is on board with what you're trying to do. So I can answer questions, Julie, and thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Great, thank you, Gus. First question, what is the square footage on these homes?
They are 480 square feet. They have a bedroom, a separate bathroom, living room, fireplace. I have all that information I can send over if folks are interested in that.
Oh, great, thank you. Let's see. We have a question about funding for the vet homes. Where were you able to get the funding, and how did that work out?
So we started conversations with the VA about the need in the community for veteran housing, and it turned out the need was substantial. And through that conversation, I was introduced to someone in Salem that referred us to the HUD-VASH program, which is a specific housing program for veterans. And through that, Oregon Housing was brought into the conversation about programs they had for grants to offer affordable housing for veterans. And we had some private money that went into the development, and the majority of the project was funded through Oregon Housing and Community Services.
Okay. So you had quite a lot of subsidy to make this development work?
Say that again?
Subsidy? Oops, sorry, I don't think.
Yeah, yep.
My mic is
because the program is based around affordability, and there's quite a difference between the mainstream rent that is currently being charged by landlords today and the affordable rents. So in order to keep investors and developers interested in moving forward with projects like this, the government and Oregon Housing has created a way to make that still viable.
Our next question is from Rebecca Lemons. How is the hospital nearby involved in the cottage home development? Will they be able to use the homes for short-term housing to bring in new healthcare workers? She mentions that there's a deep shortage in healthcare workers, as we know, and you're interested in finding creative ways to offer them housing.
Yeah, we've been involved in a couple meetings with the hospital about that. We are also creating a higher income development for professionals in the community, where we're building 23 townhomes, and we've talked to the hospital, the university, about trying to set aside some of those units that would be furnished and just able to move a professional in for a week or a month or 6 months, whatever it may be. And we're hoping that the cottage home development that we spoke of will function in that same way. So definitely want to support the hospital and the professionals that are coming in to see if they can find a place to live, if they like the area. And right now, I know that's tremendously difficult for folks that are visiting the area to accomplish.
There's a question about whether or not you would be willing to, and some of your community-minded investors be willing to meet with potential investors who might want to learn more about this experience and process of investing in college workforce housing in their communities.
Yeah, we have a website, I think, listed on there. You can contact us that way. I'm happy to take phone calls. I know we have worked with a couple other communities to give them some of the insight that we've been able to gather through the experiences we've had. And yeah, so I'm happy to certainly chat with people that are trying to get started.
Great, thank you. Virtually, we can't get to all the answers right now, but we'll be in contact and hopefully send out some of those answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Gus. That was really great to learn more about the cottage homes. I want to introduce our next presenter now. This is Katie Ulrich. Katie works for Proud Ground. Proud Ground is one of the largest community land trusts in the country, working to provide permanently affordable homes in 5 counties in Western Oregon. Thanks for being here, Katie.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate just the really diverse solutions that we're hearing today for this issue. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and start my slides here. If I can see here, how do I get rid of? There we go. All right. So yeah, I'm Katie Ulrich. I am the Homeownership Program Director at Proud Ground, and I'm going to start with just a little bit of background of our organization and what we do. Over the last 21 years, Proud Ground has assisted about 450 families in purchasing homes in our 5-county service area. So we serve Multnomah, Clackamas, Washington County. We also serve Clark County, Washington, and then we have also served Lincoln County on the coast of Oregon. So our service area does include both urban and rural areas. And this work has resulted in about 360 permanently affordable homes in our community land trust portfolio. And Proud Ground's homes do stay affordable forever, serving generations of families. And that is made possible through the community land trust model of homeownership. So I'm going to go through what that is now. Through that model, Proud Ground homeowners receive reduced sales price on their home, and they agree to maintain the affordability of their home for the next home buyer. So while that homeowner is still building wealth, our homeowners help generate future generations of home buyers have access to affordable homes just like they did. And community land trusts actually were born out of the civil rights movement, and it was really connected to land ownership and power. And people that owned land had power. And so this whole model is really looking at trying to get that ownership of land back into the community's hands, and for that land ownership to serve the community's needs. And so we do that through an affordable home ownership model, which I'll get into here shortly. The community land trust model itself is balanced really and designed for balance and inclusiveness. So we are balancing essentially that initial home buyer's interest in gaining wealth through their term of home ownership with the future home buyer's needs in the community for that same opportunity. In the community land trust model, one of the core values centers the community's voices in both program management and design. So Proud Ground's bylaws require that 1/3 of our board of directors be current Proud Ground homeowners, thus giving them a place at the table to make those key organizational decisions. And in addition to that, all of Proud Ground homeowners are voting members of the organization. So this really does help us center the families that we're serving in the decision-making and control of our community land trust. So the model itself, here's a little a visual, I guess, of how the model works. So all of our homeowners own their homes outright, well, with a mortgage, right, from a bank. They get a traditional mortgage from a bank. And our home buyers are home buyers that they're mortgage ready. They can qualify for a mortgage. They just can't qualify for enough to be able to purchase a home on their own in the market that they're buying in. The CLT, or the Community Land Trust, owns the land under the home and leases it back to the homeowner through a 99-year renewable land lease agreement. This allows the Community Land Trust to ensure that if the homeowner sells the home in the future, they're going to resell it to another income qualified home buyer. So the original homeowner receives a fair return on their initial investment in the property, while still helping those future generations of families have access to affordable home ownership. So essentially, the first home buyer purchases this house at an affordable price, and they agree to sell it to another home buyer at an affordable price upon resale. that second home buyer buys that same home at an affordable price and agrees to sell it to another family at an affordable price. None of this is needed. The only time investment is needed by the community to make the home affordable is for that first initial home buyer. And how the model works is that resale after resale, it stays affordable through that legal agreement that the community land trust has with those homeowners. And this model works. It's not just working in the Portland metro region and in our service area, it's working across the country and across the world. It allows communities to invest in permanently affordable homeownership opportunities for people in their households. So the nice thing, I guess, about when you're thinking of especially workforce housing is the community land trust model really gives you the opportunity to allow whatever community investment goes in up front for that first family to grow over time. The whole goal is that the homes are getting more and more affordable resale after resale. And you can also make strategic investments in where you want these homes to be. So for example, if you know you want to cut down commute times for the people that work at your health centers or at your schools, you could actually invest in homes that are near those locations. And because you're investing in that specific home, not in that first home buyers themselves, it allows that home to stay permanently affordable. And as I've explained, that investment grows over time. So you're serving more and more families over time and with no additional subsidy needed. And this model, well, I'm getting into it now, actually. It's very flexible. So you can do this in urban areas, rural areas. You can use this model in a high cost community as well as one that's low cost. You can utilize down payment assistance money to bring homes into the community land trust. That down payment assistance might allow, what we do with it is we allow a home buyer to go out shopping on the open market and bring an existing home into the program. We invest the down payment assistance at that initial home buyer's closing, and then the home enters our program essentially forever. We also can partner on new construction. So, some of the cottage development stuff you just heard about, or even the home that was being built by the students, that could be a partnership where the home is sold affordably through some down payment assistance, it's new construction, and it stays permanently affordable through a community land trust model. It could also be acquisition rehab, where we have actually purchased homes, renovated them, and resold them. And then it can be used either in a one-off type program where you are, using down payment assistance or new construction to build a single family home in an existing neighborhood, or it could be high density. You could do a complete development of, 4 to 20 to 40 homes that are all part of this permanent affordability program. And what's interesting is it actually doesn't need to involve land ownership. So the community land trust model in and of itself is designed to ensure that the community land trust owns the land to ensure the long-term affordability. And that is the one secure way, I would say, that you can monitor and track those resales over time to make sure it's selling affordably. But it can also be used without having land ownership, and you could use just a deed restriction or what we call an affordable housing covenant on the property to ensure that permanent affordability. So we have utilized that in our program for condominiums. And it's only used in our program for any time we can't physically own the land under a home. We will place a covenant on the property, and it essentially does the same thing. The homeowners agreeing that if or when they sell the home, they're going to sell it affordably to another lower moderate income buyer. Some of the funding options that we have used over the years, because it is so flexible, it opens up a lot of different funding choices. So local funding, like obviously, the communities you're in may not have, but if they have local money, we've used city money. We've also used state money. So LIFT for home ownership is one of those, or the Oregon Housing and Community Services Down Payment Assistance Program we've used to layer money for that initial home buyer's purchase. We also use federal money, so the community development block grants or home dollars. We also use SHOP money, the self-help ownership program that involves a little bit of sweat equity. And then there's also private money. So foundations, that's where you might want to connect with local employers to invest in that workforce housing. And we've also been able to actually get homes donated through the program, sellers selling homes at below market value to bring into the program, or just donating land or homes in general. And here's kind of a model scenario. This is actually a City of Tigard model scenario, but basically, and this is different in every community, what that sales price might be, but ours is, you know, we're targeting about $350,000 in this model, which is a little dated. And then Proud Ground is getting subsidy or investment for that initial home buyer of around $100,000 per home. And that's very specific based on your housing costs in your area. The general rule of thumb is to ensure that you're bringing in enough subsidy or grant money for that initial home buyer to at least cover a 20% down payment for them. So, you know, if houses in your community are going for $200,000, you'd want to make sure to at least bring in $40,000 to $50,000 initially to make it affordable. And then the home buyer is making up the rest, right? They're paying a majority of the purchase of the home. They're investing that loan to make that home their home. And then some implementation options in your communities. I mean, you could look at creating a community land trust yourself. I'm going to provide some resources, and I can provide those later as well. You can also partner with an existing community land trust. There are community land trust organizations throughout the country that have wide service areas. Proud Ground has actually partnered with some communities across the state of Oregon to try to help them get permanently affordable homes in their area. Also, Habitat for Humanity has really started looking more in the last 5 years at this permanent affordability model. And so it is pretty affiliate to affiliate who is taking on this type of model of permanent affordability, but that's something you could consider. And then there are cities across the country that are also implementing permanent affordability, not necessarily through a community land trust model, but more through like a deed restriction where it's ensuring that homes resell at affordable prices after the initial investment. And I'll just pop up these resources. I know this is quick. I can maybe even I'll copy and paste them in the chat here in a second. But that was kind of what I had. So I'll go ahead and stop my share and then maybe open it up for questions.
Thank you, Katie. Yeah, we have several good questions in here. First one is about the gifting and donating. So if the home's ownership is transferred through inheritance or gifting, do the same affordability restrictions apply? And also, what services do you offer to the homeowners who are interested in donating their home?
Yeah. So if a homeowner donates a home to Proud Ground, then it would enter our permanently affordable program. So we would be selling, you know, depending upon their wishes, we would be selling it at an affordable price. So for example, if it's a $350,000 home, we might sell it to our low and moderate income home buyers for $250,000, and then that home enters our program permanently. So basically what that means is that $250,000 sales price that the initial home buyer paid, that would be what we call our base price. And then upon resale, that homeowner could sell for what they bought it for, that $250,000. And in our model, we allow the homeowner to get 25% of any increase in appraised value. So for example, if they bought it for $250,000 and it was worth $350,000 when they bought it, and they go to sell it for, you know, they go to sell it and it's now appraising for $450,000, they could actually get 25% of that increase in value, or $25,000 plus the $250,000 they originally invested in the property. So they would be selling the property to another lower moderate income home buyer for $275,000 in that example, and that new home buyer agrees to the same deal. Now, the donator I can't give tax advice at all. We've had this happen probably about 5 to 7 times so far with donated homes. But from what I hear, what we do on our end is we actually issue a donation letter to the donator, the homeowner that donated, stating that they donated a house to us. It was worth $350,000, and they do what they do with their taxes through that donation letter. That homeowner could also sell it directly to the low to moderate income home buyer for the reduced sales price of $250,000. So they could get something for their property. They wouldn't be getting market value, and then our donation letter would document how much they reduced the sales price of their home to bring it into the program.
Yeah, that actually answers some of the other questions too. Thank you.
Oh, good. I thought it went on a while, so I'm glad.
Yeah. Perfect. So what happens if the homeowner is foreclosed on? Do the restrictions pass the bank that then owns the home, or what goes on there? Yeah,
so good question. That is one of the reasons why we like to do the traditional community land trust model, where we own the land under the home, because in our agreements, the lender does not get ownership of the land in the event of foreclosure. So I could get into specifics. There's different loan programs that treat it differently, but in general, the community land trust does not lose ownership of the land under the home in foreclosure, which doesn't really motivate the bank. It motivates the bank to try to work with the community land trust to get the home back into the portfolio. Now, we also have in Oregon, there is a statute that allows any holder of an affordable housing covenant or a land lease agreement like ours that ensures long-term affordability to actually purchase that home back at foreclosure sale for the amount owing the bank. So when you think about it, there's this homeowner that bought it, got a loan for $250,000, maybe they foreclosed, now they only owe $200,000, and now this home is worth $450,000. The landowner, as Proud Ground, could come in at foreclosure auction and buy it for $200,000. And that's what we would do. We've actually, in 21 years or 22 years, we've never lost a home to foreclosure. We have had homeowners experience foreclosure, very low rates, 6 out of 450 in 20 years, but we've been able to save all of those homes and keep them in the portfolio.
Thank you. I guess, yeah, we can do a couple more. Can you give specific examples on how cities have partnered with Proud Ground? That's always, something we like to see. How does that look exactly?
Yeah, I mean, really, what we've done with a lot of cities in our region that we serve is utilize some of their community development block grants or home dollars. That's the most traditional way we've done it. To basically, they give us a contract to serve a certain number of families. And in our area, we are getting anywhere from probably $75,000 up to $125,000 per home buyer through those contracts. And what we've, a really low risk way to start this program in your community is to do it in that down payment assistance approach. Because what that is we get our contracts from the city, we can serve 3 home buyers, we get our 3 home buyers lined up, and they're shopping on the open market for a home that meets all of our criteria. And we don't invest in that property until that home buyer purchases that home. So basically what's happening is the home buyer shopping for a $350,000 house. When they buy it, they're bringing in their mortgage of $250,000, and Proud Ground's bringing in the down payment of $100,000. And at that closing, Proud Ground becomes the owner of the land under the home, and the home buyer purchases the house. And the city is bringing in that down payment funding there. And it's nice because a lot of times when you're investing that much down payment, they typically have some affordability period requirements. So we, in our program, are helping meet the city's goals of the federal money that they're using to meet the affordability restrictions.
Great, thank you, Katie. Appreciate it. I guess I'll hand it back over to Julie. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Katie. That was really interesting. Our next presenter today is Nick Greene. Nick is the city manager in John Day. Since 2017, the city of John Day has been implementing a new strategic vision that includes a workforce housing initiative. Thanks for being here today, Nick.
Thanks, Julie. I appreciate the invitation, and I'm going to share my screen just to be able to share this PowerPoint. Let me see if I can go into presenter mode. All right, does that look full screen? Thanks, I'm happy to be here, everyone. A great presentation so far. I'm going to talk about John Day's housing initiatives, but I'm going to do it in the context of our community and why we launched them. This is a picture of our Main Street cattle drives that used to take place, kind of a time-honored tradition that no longer happens. And as we were doing community planning and steering committees, one of our community residents came up with the phrase, honor the past, but step on the gas. We don't want to lose touch with who we are, but we also need to recognize that who we were may not be who we are in the future. So we're dealing with that growing pain of how do you stay true to your heritage and your culture, but also become relevant in the 21st century. And we've had a lot of downward pressure in Eastern Oregon as a result of changes in state and federal policy. We've had a tenfold reduction in timber harvest on public lands since the 1950s. We are known as cattle country, but if you look at the numbers, we're actually tied for 8th. And we're kind of in last place when it comes to the big cattle producers in Southeast Oregon. So if you're not timber and you're not cattle, what are you? And if you look at where we are leading the state, right now it's in COVID-19 infections per capita, population decline, and out-migration. So not exactly the race you want to win, but we have to embrace reality. So when we have these conversations around policy changes, specifically as they relate to housing, kind of have to own our role in creating these outcomes by pursuing failed policies, or as I say affectionately, throwing adult baby fits over changes that happened to us, which were without question unfortunate. But we've spent too much time focused on the negatives and really not enough time focused on how do we solve the problems that are in front of us. And this is not like a near-term problem. This is not a problem that happened to us yesterday. This has been going on for over a generation now. We went from a population peak in the late 1980s, early 1990s, back down to where our population was in the 1970s. And according to PSU's forecast, we're headed to the 50s. So this is 50 years of net zero population gain. And we've lost more than half of our student enrollment in our local high school. Went from over 1,000 students down to about 500. And it's had a significant impact on employment as families have aged and kids have moved away. You know, the state and the nation have largely trended in the same direction, which is upward. There was a little bit of a dip in the Great Recession period. Grant County has trended down, and this has been fairly consistent. So what we're trying to do is stop the decline and arrest that trend. And we're doing that by pursuing a strategy for growth. And this is stimulated by public sector investment and joint investment with private agencies and other public agencies. So public-private partnerships and public-public partnerships. We've done fairly significant realignment of our spending strategies. Some of these have been a little bit controversial locally. But as we go through our budget each year, we identify based on our 5-year community investment plan, which specific initiatives we're funding, and we tie that to the budget committee process so that our members can see what we're investing in. So here's been the result of the last 5 years. In FY22, we passed the largest budget in our city's history. We normally operate a $5 to $6 million a year budget. This year it was over 26 million. Most of that due to 20 million in capital projects that we've fundraised for over the last 5 years. So pretty significant scale of investment for our community. And we've adopted a very strategic business focus on these investments. And we're kind of pursuing the philosophy that governments should invest in portfolios matched to their risk tolerance and community need. And so one of those big needs for us is housing. And that means we have to invest differently. We've got to syndicate risk. We've got to manage individual investor exposure. So we're becoming a broker in the marketplace. We're building capital stacks of layers of public and private capital that go into these housing projects. And we're syndicating the risk across all of our investment partners. We believe the government should be the lead investor in NPV negative projects that the private sector won't invest in. So I'm using a lot of terms from portfolio management and from Wall Street investment approaches that can make people uncomfortable, especially if they're used to government the way it's always been. And I think if you refer back to some of those prior slides, government the way it's always been is clearly not working for us. So when I talk to people about the city, I tell them we're running a 100-year-old startup. We're lean, we're aggressive in how we invest, but we're also using very sophisticated approaches to build out our capital. And it's been highly successful. So I'm going to show you some of the successes, but just to kind of cap off the strategy portion of this discussion, we don't do a one-to-end goals list for the community where number one is build a fire hall and number two never happens. Our strategy is based on strategy for growth that was modeled after high growth companies. So our goals are to attract digital commuters, active retirees, and to get back our young working families. And we do that by investing differently and pursuing these joint investment strategies. So in the deck I provided to Julie, we go through a lot of these different projects that the city's pursued, and I'm going to click through them fairly quickly, but it's primarily investments in outdoor recreation, reactivating public lands where our mill properties are, honoring what happened. And this is the mill the city bought in 2017, but recognizing that what it shows us today is basically a great big sign with blinking lights that says we're dead here. So that's what we're trying to move away from by modeling our investments on what other communities have done successfully to create public spaces and housing that still fits our culture, our community, our heritage, that inspires us. So we're showing examples of wood and timber and design surettes that fit John Day, and then enhancing some of those older structures and replacing our aging infrastructure with new investments like the city's commercial greenhouse that can spur growth in controlled environment agriculture. These are images of our produce that we grow. We're probably the largest lettuce and tomato grower in Eastern Oregon, and we're investing in solar power at significant scales to power all of these projects while undertaking very sizable investments in land redevelopment. We now own 100 acres along the John Day River. That's our massive redevelopment zone that we call the John Day Innovation Gateway. And we're also pursuing new investments in public infrastructure like a new pool, new business park, and fiber to the home. These projects are all now fully funded. So we're taking a kind of a full-scale redevelopment approach, both with our capital projects and also with the city government and how we prioritize our funding. When it comes to housing, we launched 2 market-based programs in 2018. And the pain point we were trying to address was that only 3 site-built homes had been permitted in the city in the prior decade. So from 2008 through 2018, we only had 3 homes built and about 2 manufactured homes that were placed. And so as we went through a community planning process and we talked about what are the inefficiencies in the market and how do we overcome them, we came up with a program where we would provide 7% cash back on every new home constructed in the city, indexed to the change in assessed value, and we would pay the system development charges on behalf of the property owner or the applicant, which is about $7,400. That portion of the program alone results in about a 10% cash back to the builder or buyer, excuse me. Depending on the scale of their investment. We don't cap the scale and we don't try to dictate what they build. That's entirely up to them. And then we offered a 15% rebate on major remodels as long as the change in assessed value for those remodels was $10,000 or higher. So this isn't new paint. This is a substantial renovation or improvement, floodplain redevelopment, that sort of thing. That actually led to a significant increase in housing production, which gobbled up most of our easily buildable lots. And so as we were talking with Madras, who had kind of leveraged some of our incentive programs, we looked at what they did with ours and said, hey, we're going to steal these back and improve on them. So we also now offer land development incentives for private land developers so that they get a market rate of return. And that can be through direct contribution of funds, rebates paid on property taxes, contributions to the infrastructure, or some combination thereof. And we also have an infrastructure investment program where the public sector, city, county, other public agencies can actually make improvements to the land directly and then have the private sector benefit from those improvements. So since adopting the program in 2018, we've had 14 new homes built or currently under construction, 7 single-family homes and 4 multifamily duplexes. We've also had 6 major remodels or renovations completed. 100% of our program participants are Grant County residents, or were at the time of their application. In the first 2 years, this resulted in an increase of over $1 million in tax value. At the end of year 3, we were at 3.2 million in new tax value, new assessed value created, which made us the 5th fastest growing urban renewal agency in the state and led to us having positive population growth in the city of John Day for the first time in 20 years. If you're a public official, you know state share revenue is per capita based, and that's really how we run general operations of government. The decline in population in Grant County over the last 20 years has now resulted in a loss of state shared revenue of about $100,000 a year. So it definitely adds up as decline leads to decline. But as a result of John Day's gain, we're now recovering some of that state shared revenue, even though there's still a net loss countywide. So still a lot of work to do. But as a result of these investments, we have seen new interest in the market from the private sector. So we now have 3 master plan communities for about 115 home sites that have been permitted and approved through the Planning Commission. Phase 2 of Ironwood Estates is 17 single family home lots. Phase 3 is 28 multifamily home lots. These are now cleared to go into construction and are scheduled to begin site improvements this year. We also have a new development called the Ridge, which is a 10 parcel mixed density housing development. And we're modeling a portion of this development. And again, these are all private developments with city assistance, but they're modeling a portion of this off of Gust's presentation on the Veterans Village. But instead of using a veterans program, we're using basically preference of the lender or the property owner. And these are just some examples of the types of homes that were built under the program. We have mixed use residential over commercial downtown, various types of site design homes. It's really up to the applicant what they want to build on their property. We like to innovate on other people's ideas. So we're gonna take the Veterans Village approach, but try to do it with 3D home printing. So we're going through a process right now to get 12 units permitted for 3D home printing. We're gonna do the cost benefit analysis to see if this type of construction makes sense on a price per square foot basis. But what we are focused on is how to build more efficiently. So right now, where our local GCs can maybe build 1 home a year, the goal here is to see if we can do 12 homes with 1 general contractor in a season by printing the walls, interior and exterior walls in concrete. We're also pursuing a lot of other strategic plans, but I kind of might get off the stage slides so that I'm respectful of your time. The comprehensive effort of the city has resulted in almost 23 million in grants awarded over the last 5 years. We have another 28 million that we've applied for and 40 million in the pipeline. So we're definitely investing at a significant scale now. And as a result of this, over the past 5 years, we've seen an increase in the city's net position of $2.5 million, meaning once all of our assets and liabilities are rolled up, The city is now worth 2.5 million more than it was 5 years ago, which is a 32% increase in our net position. So I think trending in the right direction, but clearly still a lot of work to do. I just talked really fast.
That was great. Thank you, Nick. Do have a couple of questions for you. Let's see. How many people in the new homes work in the community? How many retirees? And are there any second homes or vacation rentals?
Yeah, that's a great question. So right now, what we're seeing are a lot of people who either moved into their retirement home, and so it's a primary residence, but they're upgrading from a manufactured home they were living in, or they're downsizing. So we're seeing a lot of that shift, which has actually relieved pressure on our rental market to an extent. And we've seen new people move here either as retirees or people that have taken positions in the county, and they've built homes for themselves. And so they've also shifted from being renters to homeowners. To the best of my knowledge, we haven't seen any second homes, but on the multifamily duplexes, those were speculative investments by one of our realtors. And they're beautiful duplexes. She had a waiting list of about 15 people for each dwelling unit before the homes were even built. So those were rental properties. Our target for the 3D home printed homes is to hit about $750 to $850 a month in rent so that we stay within an affordable rental rate. And we're kind of working through the economics of that now.
And could you talk a little bit about tourism and how it plays into your growth strategy?
Yeah, we kind of see that as one of our growth sectors. Tourism and recreation are traded sector industries, meaning services here result in cash coming from outside of the area. And so we're investing in the new aquatic center, and we did a recreation economy strategy to try to promote tourism in very specific sectors. Agritourism, outdoor recreation, areas where we think we do have a competitive advantage in the market. It's tough in Oregon because we don't have a sales tax. So an uptick in tourists is good for our businesses, but it incurs costs for our local agencies. And it's difficult to capitalize on that from the public side. So where we try to see the return is in long-term gains to job creation and improvements to property, where we realize an ROI in the property taxes. But that means we have to have really patient capital because we're investing on the front end, kind of the first money in to promote tourism, but the last money out because we're realizing it in these long-term economic benefits.
Okay, thank you. And how are affordable and available are market rate rentals in your community?
We're right around 1,200. I mean, the affordable rate is $750 a month. We're probably around 1,200, $900 to $1,200, depending on the unit. I think those duplexes are in the $1,200 to $1,300 range, which is really pushing the affordability limit for the vast majority of our residents, but is within the strike zone for working professionals and dual income households. And we've seen a lot of lost employment opportunities for working professionals because of inadequate housing. It's happened to me at the city, it's happened to the hospital, it's happened to almost every one of our large employers. And it's tough because we know it's going to take a while to get these homes built and on the market. And this is not a battle, this is the war.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I think those are, do we have time for one more, Julie?
I think we need to move on to the last presenter. And if there's any time at the end, we can have a general Q&A, or any of you presenters, if you see a question in the Q&A that wasn't answered that is directed to you, please feel free to type an answer in there.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. really great information, and so interesting to me, all of the different situations our different counties are in, and the similarities and differences that different kinds of solutions will be the right thing for different locations. So our last presenter today is Jason Deitz. Jason is joining us from Summit County, Colorado, which is the home of the town called Breckenridge that people might be familiar with. He's sharing an overview of policies and strategies that they're using to preserve and create housing for the local workforce. Thanks for joining us today, Jason.
Yes, thank you. Good morning to everyone. Yeah, my name is Jason Dietz. I am the housing director for Summit County. And let me share my screen here. Get this set up here. Okay, so that should be working, hopefully. And so yeah, first, just a little bit of a background on Summit County. Summit County is definitely a tourist economy. You know, we have 5 major world-class ski resorts, you know, within the county or immediately adjacent to it. We are 60 miles from a major metropolitan area, Denver, Colorado. We have about 31,000, you know, permanent population. And we also have about 31,000 residential units within Summit County. So theoretically, we don't really have a housing shortage, but in reality, we do. Only about 1/3 of those homes are actually available to the local workforce or to be occupied in. You know, about 1/3 are short-term rented, and the other 1/3 are empty vacation rental homes. You know, Summit County being a tourist economy, the tourist economies typically require a lot of lower wage jobs to provide the services. So we are seeing a significant labor shortage. The county is also made up of 5 other towns: Breckenridge, Frisco, Silverthorne, Dillon, and the town of Montezuma. And recently in June, our County Board of Commissioners proclaimed a housing crisis via resolution to bring attention to the lack of housing that we currently have here in Summit County. Our most recent housing needs assessment, which was finished right before COVID, showed that we need approximately 2,000 additional rental units, not rental, but units in total. The majority of those are rental units though. And so we have what I call 4 pillars of our housing strategy to try to bring on and squeeze out more workforce housing here in Summit County. The first is, you know, code audit and modification, where we're taking a look at our internal codes to facilitate and streamline and incentivize the development of more workforce housing. Second is the preservation of existing housing stock, preserving, you know, units that have historically been workforce housing through a variety of programs. You know, we call housing helps, buy downs, and short-term rental to long-term rental incentive programs. We also have new development, and we develop new units through a variety of scenarios, whether it's just individual public projects that the county's developing, public-private partnerships with other developers, or public-public partnerships with other towns, potentially even other counties, and or with the U.S. Forest Service, which actually can play a big role. And then the last pillar would be commercial conversion, and primarily right now, converting older hotels to workforce housing. And, you know, and then to cap it all off, collaborating, which we'll talk about, you know, with the other towns, jurisdictions, and partners to gain economies of scale and more momentum. Starting off with, we'll talk about our land use and code strategies. So earlier this year, we had a housing summit and put together a housing plan to our Board of County Commissioners and identified multiple strategies within those 4 categories. And the housing code here in Summit County, We have a section of our overall land development code called the Housing Code, which is specifically geared towards workforce housing. And within that portion of the code, we're currently looking at expanding our accessory dwelling unit permitted uses. We're increasing the AMIs allowed for to be exempt from transferable development rights, up from 60 to 100%. We're allowing flexibility in size of the workforce units, the ADU units, to try to encourage people to get more units, make it a little bit easier for developers who are looking to develop workforce housing, or even the county looking to develop workforce housing, remove some of those obstacles in the way. We are also, as a part of that, we are reducing and waiving all county fees associated with workforce housing projects for the next 12 months. I have a feeling that we'll probably continue that past 12 months, but we've started off with trying to do 12 months just to encourage people to move forward with an ADU, a workforce housing development, and be exempt from those fees. As a kind of a spinoff on our opening up accessory dwelling units, we're looking to put together a accessory dwelling unit or non-compliant accessory dwelling unit grant program, where we will provide a certain amount of money in exchange for a deed restriction, which will require that accessory dwelling unit to be rented to a local worker. We're looking probably at between $30,000 to $60,000 to allow for them to, as the first stage of this grant program. We hope to have that rolled out here toward the end of the year. We are also looking at a standalone ADU stock plans program. Currently, prior to our code modification, standalone accessory dwelling units were not allowed in Summit County. They had to be attached as a part of the main structure, or if they were standalone, they had to be above a standalone garage. But right now in the county, and probably in many places, if you wanted to build anything, if you wanted to build an ADU, you reach out to an architect, you're probably at least a year out before they can even really talk to you. And it's going to probably cost another $5,000 to $10,000. So what we're looking to do is do an RFP with some local architects to develop a handful of stock plans that are ready to go that can be used by homeowners looking to do ADUs. And that will save significant time and money. Another strategy that we've recently engaged in with our short-term rental program is just the other week, we imposed a 90-day moratorium on short-term rentals. A couple of years ago, short-term rentals were pretty much unregulated within Summit County, and they were really taking over. So as the first step, we put in place a licensing process or a permitting process. We're converting it over to a licensing process. And now that gave us an idea of how many short-term rentals that we're looking at and where they are. They continue to grow, and they're taking over historic workforce neighborhoods in addition to the resort neighborhoods, which we actually believe that's where they were designed for. So the resort neighborhoods aren't so much the issue as them moving into local workforce neighborhoods. So we're putting a pause on that while we look at and present an update or short-term rental code, land use code, where we're probably going to have certain overlay districts, such as resort versus non-resort, categorize the short-term rental types, like a resort type, a primary occupant owner type, and then also a middle, maybe a couple of middle types, where it's not necessarily a full investment property, but a second home that is occasionally short-term rented. Moving to the next branch of our strategies, preservation of existing stock. We have a couple programs there. One of them is what we call Housing Helps. This is where we will pay a new buyer or an owner to place a light deed restriction on the unit that they own or are buying. There's no appreciation caps, there's no income caps, but the requirement is that it must be occupied by a member of the local workforce, whether that's yourself being the local worker or you're renting it out to a local worker. We're looking to pay 10 to 15% of the market value of that home in exchange for allowing us to place that deed restriction on your home. So it's essentially, we're buying a small portion of your property rights. That program has been pretty successful since we launched it, just right as COVID was hitting. And we have, approximately 30 units that have converted over to the Housing Helps program. We also have housing buy downs, which we aren't doing as much of right now, considering how crazy the market is, the market pricing, and then also bidding wars associated with trying to purchase a new unit. But the housing buy down program is essentially the same, where we would purchase a market rate unit, put that light deed restriction on it, and then resell it at a lower price to a local worker. Our third program is our short-term rental to long-term rental conversion incentive program. Like I said before, we we've identified the number of short-term rentals that we have in the county. We've identified certain zones where they're located. And within the what we call local zones, we have just over 1,000 short-term rentals. And we developed a survey and to get an understanding of the unit size, type, use, and how much money they're making off those units, the occupancy rate. And we're in the process of tailoring a conversion program to incentivize some of those short-term rentals over into the long-term rental market. Specifically for this, we're trying to quote unquote save the ski season right now, because again, we're in a significant labor shortage, which is we're going to need all of those workers for the upcoming ski season, for the mountains, the restaurants, and all the other jobs that are out there that are currently unfilled. The conversion program will probably be something along half of the incentive at the lease signing or shortly thereafter, and then again toward the mid or end of the lease. We're looking at a property manager's finder's fee. One of the interesting things is, we just finished up the survey information, and we had over 100 people within those local neighborhood zones that were interested in us contacting them about the incentive program. And then working with the local property manager organizations, they feel that they could probably squeeze out an additional probably 2 units per management company, creating an additional 80 to 100 units that could also be converted. So we're hoping to, convert a fair number of long-term rentals out of our short-term rental pool, because as we know, building takes time and is expensive. But that takes us to our next strategy, where we're looking at building various units. As a part of our housing strategy, we did an inventory of all of our county-owned lands and came up with all of the non-open space lands that would be ripe for housing development. Again, they will need zoning changes, et cetera, but we've identified a handful that we're moving forward with. And as I mentioned before in the beginning, that there's a couple different strategies that we use when doing developments, whether it's a public project where we develop it just ourselves and resell it to the local workforce, a public-private partnership where we partner with a local developer, whether it's on county land or it's subsidies required on non-county land, private land that they're developing in order to hit certain price points for the local workforce. Or what we often do is public-public partnerships, where we partner with other towns within the county to develop projects, we're even talking about maybe partnering with other counties within the region, because the local workforce and housing issues are regional. Here's just a couple of the different projects that we have been looking at. I wanted to forward over to this one. This one is a partnership that may be applicable in Oregon as well, where it's the U.S. Forest Service in the 2018 Farm Bill put in a provision for an enhanced leasing program. So this project is 10 acres that the Forest Service currently owns. It's kind of it was formerly used as an administration site and also workforce housing. but it's really difficult to do land exchanges with the Forest Service. We do, that is one of our long-term housing strategies and open space strategies where we do land exchanges. But the enhanced leasing program allows the Forest Service to lease administrative or underutilized Forest Service lands that aren't meeting Forest Service goals to a local municipality. The local municipality or county has first right of refusal to provide workforce housing. And as a part of the rents, it can be in-kind services, services that this Forest Service needs. In our case, they need housing. So this project, we're looking to provide, a fair, probably 30 to 40 bedrooms to the Forest Service. They have, again, they had housing on this site, but housing's not something that they, is one of their core responsibilities, and they're probably not good at doing it. The housing has several, that was previously on this site, has, several $1 million of deferred maintenance, and they really need someone to manage their housing. So we're looking to do that on this particular site and help them with that. Go back a second to the Justice Center parcel. This is a partnership with the town of Breckenridge, where we're looking to probably develop about 44 apartment units. And we're looking at modular because recently, in Summit County, we have a very long winter, and we're starting the entitlement process now with the town. And we're also looking at working with a local modular development company, Fading West, at the Buena Vista, to provide the units. So while we're going through the entitlement process, get the units entitled, which hopefully around May, still a lot of snow on the ground, but once May hits, we have the entitlements in place. The modular factory can start building these units. So as we start doing offsites, infrastructure, underground utilities, foundations, the units are being built. And then by the end of the summer, we can start stacking them and get a pretty short turnaround on the season. Our last strategy is, the commercial conversion. And this summer, we've been talking to several, hotels that are older, maybe aren't doing quite as well. And one of the issues is lack of staffing. The Alpine Inn in Frisco is a 38 unit hotel that we recently master leased from the owner with an option to buy. And we are, we've converted it over from, the commercial hotel use to a long-term rental use. There's 38 rooms, like I said. Within the first week and a half, we had over 200 people reach out about renting a room at the Alpine Inn. It's filled up, it's filled with local workers. We did target it at 80% AMI and lower and kept the rent rates low. And the leases range from 3 months or longer, but we're happy to break the lease because hopefully people find something better than the hotel room to live in. And then lastly, I just wanted to talk about, collaboration. The county, the towns, we have what we call the Summit Combined Housing Authority. The Housing Authority is made up of representatives from all the towns in the county. They are kind of the one-stop shop clearinghouse for the local residents to go to about housing questions. And they can reach out to the various towns or county for specifics and transfer people to the specific entity in question. They handle all of the deed monitoring, all of the questions, all of the applications in one central location. So if you were looking, if we open up a project and we're taking applications on for sale units, they all get qualified through the Housing Authority. And then these are just some examples of partnerships that we have on projects within the county. With Breckenridge, we did here on Landing some apartments, Coto Flats apartments. We're looking at the Justice Center property, which we'll have to find a better name for than the Justice Center. Town of Frisco, we're working with them on Lake Hill. That's a 436 unit development that we're currently working through some infrastructure issues on. So there'll be a range of rental, a variety of AMI types, and for sale, a variety of AMI types. They helped us with the Alpine Inn rezoning, and the town of Dillon, we're partnering with them on the U.S. Forest Service compound. And we will also have to have a better name for that one as well, which we have not come up with. Yeah, so we look to partner with all of our towns and to try to get efficiencies, economies of scale. And, you know, there's a wide range of project types out there. And that is just that's the overview of Summit County and Summit County housing. Happy to take any questions.
Really, trying to find my mute button. Thank you, Jason. Yeah, we have several questions for you. I guess we can start with, what role does the USFS play and why?
The Forest Service, they provide the land. Summit County is, you know, over 90% public land. And there are a couple of administrative sites and projects that we've done with them. The Lake Hill project that I mentioned, which is 45 acres, and we're looking to put about 400, slightly a little over 400 units there. We started working with them back in 2009 or 2010, and it literally took an act of Congress, you know, signed by President Obama for the force that direct them to sell that land to us. That resulted in the 2018 Farm Bill, where they developed the enhanced leasing program, where they can lease, you know, the underutilized or administrative sites that they don't, that aren't meeting Forest Service objectives to counties and or towns. Right now, the U.S. Forest Service compound, it's the one of the first ones in the nation. I think Eagle County is also working on one that is also going to be one of the first in the nation. But you know, that's the role that they play. They're a major land holder.
Thank you. And how do you ensure the permanence of the workforce housing developed through the incentives?
So the incentive program is meant to be, you know, not permanent. It's meant to be a short-term fix within, you know, the next 6 to 12 months. It'll be in 2 phases. The first phase is through the ski from right now until April or May, the ski season, and then we will reevaluate it and see if we'll probably extend it through the summer as well, because we already have a lot of interest from short-term rental owners looking to long-term rent in the summer. And, but it's meant as a program to provide housing while these other projects are being built and other opportunities being explored. After COVID, you know, when COVID hit, our residential marketplace, which was already pretty hot, went absolutely on fire with the new Zoomtown phenomenon, where people don't need to go to an office space. They can live anywhere they want and work from home. So Summit County saw a huge increase of people purchasing up traditional, you know, everything from traditional housing to multi-million-dollar housing. We saw our prices, you know, shoot up 20%. And the locals were no longer able to compete in the marketplace.
Okay, thank you. And there's a number of questions about deed restrictions work. So does the city or county find the work to be really time consuming or take up a lot of administration and monitoring, a lot of work time, or does it take up a lot of the number of people who are available for that? How much impact does it have on staffing?
Well, yes, it does take a fair amount of time. We have a fair number of deed restrictions as well. And that is the role that the Summit Combined Housing Authority really helps us with. And, you know, that is a staff of 5, where they have a realtor as well. They help resell the deed restrictions. They provide qualification to the deed restriction, income qualifications, work qualifications, and deed monitoring. And then the county will do a more in-depth audit of, you know, a certain percentage to make sure that people are living within the deed restriction. But it's you know, it's a way to ensure that the investments that the towns are making into these workforce housing developments, which are substantial, that the next owner that buys that place is also buying it at a below market rate within the AMI target range that it was targeted for. So our deed restrictions vary a fair amount based on the specific goals of a project. And they on the for sale side, they generally range from 70% AMI up to 120% and some even above. They kind of capture the missing middle.
Okay. And do those employees, if they retire, have to move?
They do not.
Okay.
Although I would say that, you do have to stay there for a certain period of time, having been there for like seven years, it ranges from the town to town, but 7 to 10 years. So that to avoid, someone from Denver moving up here, getting a job at a ski resort, buying a deed restricted home, and then retiring, 2 years later and taking up deed restricted inventory. So there are specific requirements for retirement, and it is targeted to the, the long-time local workforce.
Well, thank you, Jason. I think I'm going to hand it over back to Julie. Looks like we're nearing the end, but we appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Jason. And thanks to all of the presenters who were here today. It's really inspiring to hear these innovative solutions that people are implementing. And so we hope this information will inspire all of us in our next phase of this work. For those of you who are located in Baker, Morrow, Umatilla, Union, or Wallowa counties, we'll be hosting a workshop next Tuesday, October 5th, to bring folks together to prioritize next steps and begin the work of moving the dial on this issue. This will be an online workshop where the participants will work with others from their community in breakout rooms. So there should be a link going in the chat, or you may already have this if you sign up on our forums. So we have one more poll that we're going to put up. This is just to ask you, each of you, what is your next step in improving housing options in your community? And I'm also going to put up a chat question for everyone. So if you could enter in the chat, what do you want to know more about? This team of people who've hosted this webinar are, wanting to support this work as we move forward. So we'd like to know what else you would like to know about. And last but not least here, I want to thank the partners who have all worked together to host this workshop, as well as the other workshops that are coming up. We'll be supporting these teams of people starting on October 5th to work together over the next several months. And we'd like to have as many people involved in that as possible. So it's great to see that we have quite a few people planning to attend the October 5th workshop. Please let other people in your community know about this opportunity. And even if you can't be at the workshop next week, we will be welcoming people to join this effort as we move forward. Thanks for taking the time to be here today and for asking questions and being part of this work.